For those who missed it, here's a quick recap of UFC Fight Night JDM versus Prates. Alright, the main card was pretty awesome. A lot of things to learn from it, a lot of things that are worth noticing, especially if you are an upcoming fighter or very much into the coaching of MMA fighters. A lot of pointers that you can pick for yourself and for your athletes from this fight card. Alright, very first up, you had Tuivasa versus Louie Sutherland, and Tuivasa faced his seventh consecutive defeat. The guy just does not learn. His ground game is still as terrible as ever. And Louie Sutherland completely exploited that lack of a developing ground game. Literally took him to the ground and then did whatever the hell he wanted with Tuivasa for completely 3 rounds. 3 rounds, absolute domination. So once you reach that level, you need to wonder, like, how much do you really need to round up your game so that doesn't become such a huge flaw in your game that anybody can exploit it so brutally. All right, so for people who want to get in like the higher leagues of MMA, please understand, please round up your game. Eventually you have a flaw. When you're starting off, you have a flaw, fine, but if you don't start covering up that flaw, you don't start rounding up your game and getting skills in the department where you're lacking, eventually people are going to exploit it and exploit it really, really bad. And then we had Shamil Gaziev versus Brando Pericic. Now, Shamil has great hands. He has power in his hands, but he just kept depending on that power. Whereas Brando was very, very technical. He had clearly studied Shamil's style. He knew what to do. He knew what to expect. And he was always one step ahead of Shamil. And he managed a second round KO over Shamil Gaziev. Now, if Shamil always relies just on his power and his typical style, which refuses to again evolve or get better, he's going to find himself in this situation over and over again. And Brando completely exploited that unidimensional striking style, too much reliance on power, and Brando just went against it, played smart, played very technical, and knocked him out. Then you had Marwan Rahiki versus Ollie Schmid. Now, this is one fight where I feel bad, alright? Because Marwan is a phenomenal fighter, and Ollie Schmid came up against him on very, very short notice with a career background that does not really match up to Marwan Rahiki. So Ollie Schmid literally took this fight out of desperation because it's such a big opportunity. He cannot say no. He took it up, but he was really, really not prepared for this level. Like, Marwan Rahiki is really, really good. And exactly, the outcome was as expected. First round knockout of Ollie Schmid. Like, Marwan Rahiki was levels ahead. So I don't know, like, sometimes you're just too desperate for a fight. Maybe you're going through financial distress. Maybe the opportunity seems too big to pass and you take it up, but then this is the outcome you are bound to get. So no surprises there. Then we had Tim Elliot versus Steve Erceg. This was an amazing matchup according to me because their styles cannot be more different than each other. One is absolute chaos, absolute unpredictability. His Instagram handle itself is awkward MMA, right? He's extremely awkward, very difficult to predict. Whereas Steve Erceg is technical to the T. Military precision, military discipline. The way he fights, absolutely impossible to pull Steve Erceg into a mindless brawl. Like, Tim Elliott kept trying that. He kept trying to get random, get bizarre, go into Steve Erceg's face, draw him into a brawl. But Steve Erceg did not budge. He kept it technical. He kept it sharp. Every shot, every movement was so precise, so planned, so stuck to the game plan that Tim Elliott could not waver Steve Erceg from his own game plan. So eventually, discipline won over chaos, and Steve Erceg won a decision over Tim Elliott. Absolutely beautiful fight to watch. If you watch, it's an entertaining fight, even though it went to decision. The way Steve Erceg stayed disciplined despite the absolute chaos, which was beautiful chaos that Tim Elliott brought, it was just amazing to watch. And then we had Beneil Dariush versus Quillan Salkilld. Of course, I always say you cannot count out an old man in a young man's sport, but Beneil Dariush just did not have the tools to deal with an extremely well-rounded, extremely talented Quillan Salkilld. Now, I have gone on record before to say this, that Quillan Salkilld is championship material. He is extremely well-rounded, extremely talented, and he goes in with killer intent. All right. Of all his fights in the UFC, only one has gone to decision. Rest everything he has finished, and finished dominantly. Like head kick KOs, one punch KOs, and Beneil Dariush unfortunately had to learn this the hard way. He round lost by first round TKO. Feel bad for the guy. He's extremely talented. Love his grappling. Very mature, very intelligent, very self-aware of the fact that the new gen is coming up. But yeah, here he thought he could stand up and grapple with Quillan Salkilld. And he did push that game. He did impose that game. But Quillan Salkilld just came out a little bit tougher, a little bit stronger, and a little bit more warm-blooded than Beneil Dariush, and knocked him out in the very first round. And then came the fight that everybody was looking forward to, which was Carlos Prates versus JDM. Now, Carlos Prates is a kickboxer, and JDM is technically a boxer. And I have said this multiple times in class, even when I'm training with my athletes and stuff, that every time you go against a boxer, if you are a kickboxer, chop the legs. And now, from now on, I'm always going to use this fight as an example of that, because that is exactly what Carlos Prates did. Like, boxers usually have a tendency to fight with a wide stance because they never have to worry about getting kicked below the legs, like kicked lower. So they are not so aware of that. And Carlos Prates exploited it. You may be at a very high level, all right? You may be a UFC ex-champion, but the thing is, your foundation is still boxing. And like they say, it's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. Even if you cover up, even if you improve, you're not going to be as good as someone who's already in that zone since the beginning. And Carlos Prates is that. Carlos Prates is a kickboxer. He's very sharp with his kicks, very sharp at hunting the legs. And once he had hunted out JDM's legs from underneath him, it was a walk in the park for him. And he chose his shots so precise, so powerful, that JDM seemed helpless in this fight. He managed to land a few shots here and there, but Carlos Prates was always on the mark, planned, chopped out the legs, hunted the head, got the third round TKO. Phenomenal performance from Carlos Prates, and this definitely puts him in the conversation for a championship shot. And I hope he gets this. He's an extremely entertaining fighter. The only thing he has not been tested for right now is a very heavy grinding ground game. So I think they should throw him in a fight like that first before they bump him up to the championship shot. But given the way he sells fights, he promotes himself, and the way he is a fan favorite because of highlight finishes and his high profile matches, I think they might just give him that title shot. Let's see what happens. But overall, a lot of things to enjoy and learn from this fight night. This was UFC Fight Night JDM versus Prates, and you will find this on Sony Live in India. It is available, recorded versions, and in all regional languages as well. You will hear me commentating in Hindi. Alright, this is Pushkaraj Shirke for Project Battlefit, and I hope you had a good time. If you want more content like this, do let me know in the comments. This is the first time I experimented making a long form content about a fight night in review. Generally, people don't engage with long form content, but I've reached a point where I don't give a what people think. I just want to create good quality content and discuss real fights with real people who matter, and that is what I'm doing here. So let me know if you enjoy this. Let me know your feedback in the comments. Let me know how I can make the fight game more fun and more experiential for you to watch and enjoy and share with all of us on the online space. Cheers.